You know, I'm not one of those guys that gets enamored by celebrities and that type of thing. But if I was being honest, I'm sure that if I stopped to think, that there'd be a few people that I would think it would be really cool to be in their presence and get to talk with them. But I understand the reality's not going to happen, so I put it out of my mind. Well, the irony of that is we have the opportunity at any given day to literally be in the presence of the maker of heaven and earth, of God. And I want to talk about that today in your morning cup of inspiration. Yes, we have the capability of being in God's presence. We don't always feel it, but I want to share with you a few things today as to how we can live in God's presence. And I found it in Psalms, the 15th chapter, the first 5 verses. And the first verse says, how can we dwell or live in God's presence? What a great question, right? We want to be able to experience God's presence, but it doesn't always happen. So here the psalmist, here David tells us some of the things that if we'll do these, we can dwell in God's presence. He says that those who are blameless can dwell in God's presence. If you do what's right, if you don't slander, if you speak truth, if you treat your neighbors right, if you despise evil, if you honor the righteous, and here's the last one, if you do what you say even when it hurts. That's a great one, isn't it? Another translation says, he who swears to his own hurt and does not change. That is basically integrity. So the bottom line, if we sum this up, if we do what's right, there's no better wisdom or advice I could give anyone but to, in every circumstance, do what's right. Live a righteous life. Turn away from evil and be a person of integrity. If you do those things, it says in the 5th verse, if you do this, you'll never be shaken, you'll never be moved, and you can remain in God's presence. So if you're like me, man, I would love to be in God's presence. We can't always feel that presence, but if we'll do these things, I believe we can rest there. We can benefit from everything His presence has for us. If you want to know more about being and experiencing the presence of God, I encourage you to watch our podcast this week, Finish Strong, where Dan Bryan and I talk more extensively about experiencing God's presence. I trust you'll go there. Trust you have a great day today. Thanks for joining me for that morning cup of inspiration, and I'll see you next time.